Welcome to the Accepted Authority, where we help you solve a common growth challenge. I'm Andrew Marmont, and with me, as always, is Greg Rowith. G'day, Greg.
G'day, Andy.
So today we are going to be speaking about online events. And we know that through the pandemic, webinars and virtual events were the bee's knees, as they say, and everyone was doing them. And now it's sort of settled down a little bit, but there's still a lot of value. And I think there's still a fair bit of confusion about how do we do and how do we successfully promote and create online events for the purpose of growing our firm, generating leads, building brand awareness. So Greg and I both had experience creating and running webinars and running online events. I'm doing another one in about 3 weeks' time, and it's going to be part of my marketing this year. And I know that Greg, you've also had webinars previously. So we wanted to have a bit of a discussion around a bit of a for and against. Should we do an online webinar? Yes, no, and what have we learned about, what does a successful event need to have and look like? So let's explore it a little bit deeper. So maybe to start with, Greg, first of all, online events, yes, no, you like them? What's your take on it?
Yeah, well, definitely like them. To me, they're an extension of the free giveaway, like the ebook or white paper that often consultants will have available on their website. With a web event or a web training, you've got an ability to make it more of a two-way conversation rather than you just delivering information. What I've found valuable in the web events and web trainings I've done is being able to have that live interaction where we can drill down into someone's specific questions or specific challenges that they're facing. And, as long as the group that you have isn't too large, where that becomes a bit intrusive, but if it's a small enough group, you can have that level of interaction. But even with a larger group, you can still have that interactivity by just getting feedback or quick comment or some sort of feedback from them just putting a number one. Did you understand that? Did you hear that? Or did you how are you liking it? So yeah, just quick and easy feedback that gives you an opportunity to gauge the responsiveness of your audience and see if you're actually hitting the mark, or if they have any specific questions, give them an opportunity to come up with that. So I think from that perspective, it's taking it up a notch from the information delivery to a two-way conversation that has real value in helping your potential clients connect with you even more and having more of an understanding about the specific areas that you can help them.
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg. And when it comes to what people want nowadays, they want connection, and having a regular event, attending an event where you can speak, as you say, it's personable. It can be one to many, but you can also make it fairly interactive. So I think the element of the engagement is not something you can replicate through a lot of other ways. So I think that's a very good point. In terms of what they look like, the other point you mentioned there is, instead of having information presentation, which we've moved on from that, and because someone can watch a YouTube video if they want information. So if you think about how do you differentiate yourself, you can do some sort of online approach. One element to think about is not actually calling it a webinar. There was some research done, and it suggested that the word webinar puts people off because they think it's a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that you're not going to do some selling in your webinar, but you have to accentuate the value. So is it going to be a Q&A? Is it going to be an online training? Is it going to be a workshop? Are you going to workshop a particular problem? And if you can think of it like that, then it becomes valuable for your ideal client. So
yeah,
have you sort of noticed that in your experience?
Yeah, you know, particularly in some circles, you know, webinars have been overused, overdone, and used particularly as a sales vehicle. So people do get that impression that, you know, webinar is easy to sign up for, but there's no real commitment in signing up to attend a webinar because, they feel like it's going to be a sales pitch. So, it might be some useful information. There's often some good points, but I know someone's going to sell me something. So, to take away that preconception that it's a webinar, I'm going to be sold something, you know, to have that level of differentiation about what you're trying to do, you know, to give people the understanding that you are there to deliver valuable information and not to sell. And I think for the types of services that most consultants provide, it's not really a sales environment, although we don't want to lose the aspect that we want, you know, a progression from the web event to the sale. But it's like the web event, the training is a no pitch area. And I think when people understand that and you really, you know, give people that understanding beforehand, they're much more likely to sign up and attend because they value the information, or they want that information that you're telling them you're going to be presenting on that web event. And, you know, the interactivity of it is an attractive aspect because people want connection, they want interaction. They don't want to sit there, you know, and just have an information dump that they have to listen to. As you say, they can get that on YouTube. So, there are some important aspects of, you know, a webinar, but we don't want to call it a webinar because that's got, you know, preconceptions that aren't really helping us.
Yes. If we just change tack slightly, Greg, because I found that the most important part of this is not actually the presentation, but it's actually the promotion and getting people there, and then the post-sale process. I've been part of webinar systems with other people where we've gone down a path and we've done all the right things. We get a pretty good turnout, and then I don't have a sales process, so it's almost like it's wasted. So one aspect that I think we should talk about is the promotion. We need to get people there. That's probably one element to it. Yes, there's a content piece, so we can record our webinar. That has its own attraction where we can, you know, chop it up and have amplified content, a content system. But it's more around getting people there. So having a pretty robust process around. Well, first of all, do you have a list of people that you've curated, and how you're going to get that information? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, okay, so how do we make people aware enough that they will sign up, but also that they're going to actually attend? So if we talk about promotion for a second, what have you learned around getting people to the event? What's worked for you?
Well, I think there's the two aspects of that. As I say, there's the sign up process, but also the show up process. So we want people to sign up for our event, first of all. So there's a level of promotion that we need to attract people to the event. You know, they recognize the value to them where they're willing to sign up. And, you know, whether that's a free event that they have to register for by putting in their name and email address, or maybe it's a paid event. You can do both. There's no hard and fast rules about that. But getting people to register for your event, you know, there's a marketing process, a promotional process to get to that point where you're delivering the value. Once people are registered, there's usually a lag between registration and, you know, the time of the event. And that's where there's a real danger of the drop-off, where, yes, something happens, you know, something gets in the way, a client calls and wants a meeting. Oh, yeah, well, okay, I'm only, you know, it's only a webinar I'm registered for. I can give that a miss. So, you know, we want people to maintain that level of interest and desire to attend the event between that sign up and show up phase. So there needs to be continual promotion and communication that continues to deliver value. That means that their level of interest keeps on rising to the point where they must attend. In their mind, it's a must-attend event because the value of that has outweighed any other or distraction or anything else that could get in the way of them showing up. So we need to think about that process. It's not enough just to get them registered. We've got to then nurture that interest and increase that interest so that on the date or time of the event, they're really keen and desperate to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so much choice out there, as you say, there's all these competing distractions. So having a good process to ensure that something that's really relevant as well. The other part around the promotion is, I feel like there's a sweet spot around. You don't want to give people too much time, but also you don't want to make it too short. So, for example, 6 weeks, I used to think that was the sweet spot, but it's so long. People forget, something else comes up. So I feel like 3-4 weeks, it's enough time to be on the radar. And if it's 30 minutes long or maybe 40 minutes long, then it's not a huge time commitment.
Yeah.
So having creating interest and intrigue, I think, is one aspect. But the other piece is, again, we don't want to give it away too much. We want to make sure that it's a compelling process. They can there's some interaction, some interest. It's a simple sign up page. It's a confirmation page, and then you're able to, as you say, you want to nurture them so they don't forget, but also you want to remind them of the value coming into it. So you've got to have a system, I think, is the key point there.
Yeah, no, just definitely being systematic about that process, but also, as you mentioned, the time frame. Yeah, a week, maybe even 2 weeks is too short a time frame because people are busy and they've got bookings in their calendar that they can't move. We've got one time and date for our event. They will either be there or they won't, or they'll be available or they won't. So the longer window of opportunity we've got to have our event booked in their calendar, it needs to be just right. So too short and they're booked out and can't get there. But again, too long and they book in, they register, but it's that what's the the right word, I guess, the deterioration of the interest over time means that the importance of that event, even though it's booked in the calendar, it's like, well, it's movable, it's not that important, so we can put something else in. So the sweet spot, I would say 2 to 3 weeks out from an online event. A physical event, if you're turning up to a live workshop room, the booking process probably needs to be longer than that. But online events have have a very short shelf life, and we need to get that timing right. So about 2 to 3 weeks out, starting promotion, getting people where that time's relatively free for them, and having the opportunity then to stay interested or even nurture that interest before they get there.
Absolutely, and I think that the post process too. I mean, it's 24 hours. 24, 48 hours, but generally 24 hours, you need to have some sort of process where you're following up with people. I found that anything after that, the strike rate of interest goes way down. And, what is your process? You've attended the event, you probably have some sort of call to action. But what you need to have resources and you have dedicated time to be able to follow up people 24 hours after the event, or else you're going to waste your whole process. So I think that's something that I learned the hard way. If you don't have that sales process, or you don't have a system, then you've wasted 4 weeks or 5 weeks and all the time you spent getting people there. So that's super important for me, is don't fall in love with the webinar.
Yeah.
Ensure you've got a strong and robust follow-up process.
Yeah, the follow-up is important. And I love your your point there, don't fall in love with the webinar. It's a sequence of events or a series of activities that makes the whole process work. You know, we've got the sign up, we've got the show up, we need the follow up as well. And just having that event call to action, people consider it, but often the end of an event is like, oh, we need to move on quickly. We've got another thing happening straight away. So they can't do the call to action. They can't click the link or go to the website immediately, or even if they do, you know, it's there opened up somewhere, but then they're on to their next conversation or next meeting. And it's in the background. And, you know, how often do you go back to a tab that you've opened up in those sort of situations, and you might look at it and say, what was this about again? So having that follow-up. And I think it's a lot of work to do all this. So having the whole process set up and automated so that you don't have to be thinking about the follow-up. You don't have to be thinking about the nurture sequence, you know, doing all that work ahead of time so that it's automated, so that, you know, immediately or, you know, an hour after your event, you go back with an automated message that's going out to the attendees. You know, thanks for showing up. Here's the link again. Here's why you need to click that link. Here's what we want you to do. You know, a few days later, and a few days later again. Have that all in place, automated, so that you're not having to think about it or even get your VA to do it. You know, the automation sequence and automation technology is so available these days that sort of process is easier to set up, much easier to manage and make sure it happens.
Absolutely. Well, some great lessons for today. I think the takeaway for me was having a system, having a process. Don't fall in love with the webinar, and ensure that you have a good follow-up process. So those are the key things that I took away. So thank you, Greg. Where can we find you online?
Yes, again, search for me at Greg Roworth on LinkedIn or Facebook, or go straight to my website at businessflightpath.com.
Excellent. I'm on LinkedIn at Andrew Marmont, and the website is concurve.com.au. This has been the Accepted Authority Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.